Over the summer, Donald Trump's deputy attorney general and former personal lawyer, can't say that together too many times, Todd Blanche, met twice with Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted sex trafficker and, of course, accomplice of Jeffrey Epstein's. And in those interviews, Maxwell put distance between Trump and Epstein, saying that she did not recall ever seeing Trump in Epstein's home. Except in Epstein's own email to Maxwell back in 2011, released just yesterday by Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, Epstein admitted that Trump did indeed visit one of his homes. Now, maybe she didn't see, but Maxwell's response to Epstein to that email was, quote, "I have been thinking about that." Really makes you wonder about just how honest Ghislaine Maxwell was in those interviews, and why Todd Blanche never brought up this piece of evidence in his interviews with Maxwell in the first place. Well, today, Todd Blanche admitted on Twitter that despite being the #2 person at the Justice Department, he did not have that evidence at the time. Posting, quote, "When I interviewed Maxwell, law enforcement didn't have the materials Epstein's estate hid for years and only just provided to Congress." And let's just say I have a lot of questions about that admission. Joining me now is Senator Adam Schiff, who sits on the Judiciary Committee, and I'm betting has a lot of questions about that admission, too. Let's just start there. I mean, in that post, Todd Blanche confirmed something that I think, even in this age of a lot of stunning things, should be stunning, that he didn't have all the information when he interviewed Maxwell. What did that tell you?
Well, this goes to a central question about that whole interview, and that is, why didn't Todd Blanche actually bring someone familiar with the case, one of the prosecutors who had handled the case, that would know the facts, that would know when Maxwell was lying, when she was telling the truth? Now, one of those prosecutors was James Comey's daughter, who was fired from the Justice Department. But he brought no one who knew the facts and no one who could press Maxwell, test whether she's telling the truth. That, of course, was deliberate, because getting the truth from Maxwell was not the object. Getting an exonerating statement, exonerating testimony for Donald Trump was the object. And, of course, it appears that that resulted in Maxwell being transferred to this, minimum security concierge service providing institution that is not suitable for sex offenders. So on the one hand, it raises profound questions about why Blanche wasn't prepared and didn't know the facts. But more than that, it really underscores what Amanda said, and that is, we need a real investigation here. If they didn't have the emails from the estate, it's because Kash Patel didn't ask for them, didn't subpoena them, didn't want them. I think we see in these emails that are now dribbling out just why Bondi and Patel don't want to release what they already have and don't want to do the thorough investigation that was apparently never done by the government.
I have so many questions for you about this trove of emails, which I'm sure you haven't read all 23,000 pages. But just, I know we're living in a time where the consequences that should happen don't always happen. We obviously can't unwind and go back in time and have Todd Blanche bring someone with him. As you said, he didn't intend to do that clearly. Ghislaine Maxwell, as you said, was transferred to a more minimum security prison where she's apparently playing with puppies and taking yoga classes. What should happen? You said an investigation should happen. In normal times, obviously, she should be transferred back, right? What else should happen, given these revelations from these emails that she seemed to have lied multiple times?
Well, we should be doing oversight in Congress. Republicans should be helping to do that oversight to find out who made the decision to transfer her to this, sort of cushy prison. Who made that call? When I asked Kash Patel about it in the Judiciary Committee, he claimed that it was the Bureau of Prisons, and the Bureau of Prisons made that decision on their own. He knew nothing about it. The Justice Department wasn't involved somehow. That was the import of his testimony. That just doesn't pass the credibility test. So, number one, we need to do oversight in Congress. But number two, the Justice Department needs to do a real investigation. They need to release publicly what they have. These emails have already shed, I think, some significant light. I was really struck by something Donald Trump said over the summer when he acknowledged having a falling out with Epstein because Epstein was taking girls from Mar-a-Lago. And I remember asking myself, what did he think Epstein was doing with those girls? And now we see one of those emails that just came out makes reference to this when Epstein, I think, is telling Maxwell or telling someone else in those emails, well, of course he knew. That's why there was essentially this dispute over taking girls from Donald Trump or from Mar-a-Lago. So these emails are already shedding light. The White House is engaged in its usual sort of blitzkrieg of denials. But there needs to be a real investigation here, a serious investigation.
There's so many emails to your point, and I think reporters and committee members and staff are still going through them. I want to ask you about one of them specifically that I don't think I paid as much attention to yesterday, but I did today, and I think a lot of people did. It's the one where Jeffrey Epstein says about Donald Trump, "I am the one able to take him down." What do you think that means?
Well, I think the import is I know information on Donald Trump that the public hasn't seen yet, and it is very incriminating. This is, I think, where he refers also to it as the dog that hasn't barked. That is the information that isn't out there yet. So clearly he believes he has something that is valuable to him as potential extortion of Donald Trump, but also would be extremely damaging to the president. And probably a thorough investigation would reveal just what that is. If Epstein put it in writing to someone else or if there was physical evidence of that in the files.
If the House votes to release the Epstein files next week, and it sure looks like it will, Donald Trump will have to count on Republicans in the Senate to stop this from getting to his desk. And even then, he might have some problems.
I just don't think this issue is going to go away until that issue is addressed and answered to the American people's satisfaction. Yeah. And I may end up with a sombrero on my head for saying that, but that's the way I see it.
That's, of course, a reference to the video, the AI video that Trump did about Hakeem Jeffries. But back with me, of course, is Senator Adam Schiff. Now, it looks like, let's just talk about the mechanics of this, because it looks like there could be a lot of Republican support on the petition in the House. I'm going to talk to your California colleague, Ro Khanna, about that in just a moment. But what are you expecting to happen when it lands in the Senate?
Well, I would expect they will do everything they can to fight that passing in the Senate. And we're going to do what we can to make sure that that gets taken up. There are a number of tactics we can use in the Senate to compel a vote. We have compelled votes, for example, in the Judiciary Committee about releasing the Epstein files. Those votes didn't succeed, but I'm glad to hear Senator Kennedy, who sits on the Judiciary Committee with me, make comments like that, because it does show that some of the Republicans want this information to be public. They want to know who is responsible, who should be held accountable. So we will explore whatever methods, whatever tools we have to force votes on this. It is simply not going to go away. And I think the more the White House lets this drip, 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 the more they're going to wish they had just, released things and stopped this campaign of, fighting disclosure, denial, followed by implausible denial, followed by implausible denial.
So there's, just to put a fine point on that, there's not a discharge petition process in the Senate, but there are ways to compel or to push for votes even without Senate Majority Leader Thune, who seems not inclined to do it at this moment. Is that right? Through a committee process?
Well, you can often force votes on things in committee. Forcing votes on the floor is a little bit more challenging. Some things are privileged, and we'll certainly explore whether there's anything privileged that can be made to fit disclosure of the Epstein files. But even if there isn't, there are ways to both negotiate. Okay, we're going to not put up a fight on this. If you don't put up a fight on voting for that, or at least allowing us a vote on that, there is leverage that we can use. Now, as we have seen, the leverage is limited. We are very much in the minority. But we can make it very difficult in the Senate for Senate Republicans if they continue to go along with the president's concealment campaign.
And people can advocate to their senators at the same time, too. Let me ask you, obviously, there's a hurdle to get this through, which is why I wanted to talk to you about this. Let's just talk about if this were to become law, because I think it's important for people to understand what it could do. The House Oversight Committee is, of course, with bipartisan support, issued subpoenas to get information. We've seen information released. The information that came out yesterday came from the Epstein estate. There's more coming on that front. If this were to pass, this discharge petition, if it were to pass and become law, what's the difference between the information that could come from this and the information that the committee is getting through the subpoena process?
Well, it would mean that the whole universe of information that's in the government's possession would be released, redacting names and other things to protect the privacy of victims. That would be the most fulsome disclosures. What the committees have had to do is go to outside parties like the estate, the Epstein estate, to get records. They might be getting some records from the administration, but clearly the administration is cherry-picking what they provide to Congress. So this would end the cherry-picking of information. Now, I would fully expect, just given what we've seen of the Trump administration and their tactics, that if this passes both houses, of course, they'll veto it. And if somehow we were able to override a veto, they would challenge it in court as, with some false claim of constitutionality or unconstitutionality. They would try to draw this out beyond the president's term if they can. So this is a hugely important step in the House because it forces people to go on record whether they're going to continue to be part of this cover-up. And hats off to Ro Khanna and Representative Massey for leading this charge. But it's a hard road ahead. Nevertheless, forcing these votes is a form of important accountability.
No question, including in the Senate. It's powerful to see where people stand. And it's important for people to understand the hurdles because there's a lot of other levers that need to keep being pushed as well. Senator Adam Schiff, thank you as always for joining me.